Good day, everyone, and welcome to Bank Gabarone's third Kgwebo Connect series under the theme Empowering the Everyday Entrepreneur, Building Resilient Businesses. My name is Bobo Samuel, your moderator and business banker from Bank Gaborone. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the business climate, taking into account the current market conditions and how we can build resilient businesses. Joining me in today's session is Mr. Mpaphi Tsholofelo, Director of Policy Advocacy at Business Botswana. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Bobo.
And joining us as well is Mr. Shangano Tsayang, Head Credit Origination at Bank Gaborone. To kickstart our conversation, I'll bring it to you, Mpaphi. In terms of the business climate and the SME reality, from your research and engagement across the private sector, what is the current state of SMEs in Botswana, and what are the biggest pressures affecting the sustainability, taking into account what's currently happening in the market?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us. It's an honor. In your intro, you indicated, and rightfully so, that the current economic environment it's really not conducive. It's subdued. In the sense that we can see where things are going. And remember that these SMEs are operating within this environment. So they are in a very critical transitional phase, considering what we are seeing. And also there are structural adjustments that are being done in order to move towards diversifying the economy and transitioning the economy. So they are faced with quite a lot of pressures that are affecting their sustainability, and some of those include finance, logistics, and also the macroeconomic environment or factors that we are currently operating under, and we'll obviously unpack this as we continue with our conversation.
Okay, thank you for that, Mpaphi. I think it's quite good to actually see that, taking into account what's currently happening, there is some research that is actually being taken out in order to find out ways in which businesses can be supported during this period. I think I'll throw it to you, Reshangano. From a banking point of view, what does Bank Gaborone look for when they assess SMEs?
Thank you, Bobo. So for SMEs, basically what we look for, there's a model that we call Campari. What Campari stands for is C for character, A for ability, M for margin, P purpose, A is the amount that is being sought, and then R is repayment ability and insurance. So what that means is that character, we're looking basically to bank clients that will be able to repay back loans, meaning they have commitments that they are fulfilling in their current businesses. So unpaid checks and things like that, actually not checks anymore, but stop orders, standing orders are being fulfilled and they're not unpaid. And the ability basically looks at, we assess the business itself as a going concern. Can this business sustain itself in the foreseeable future? And then margin, as a bank, we exist basically to fulfill our shareholders' dreams, which means we make money for the shareholders. So now, that being the primary purpose, we do also basically have to make sure that the funds that we're getting from wherever are rightly placed at the right price, right? Okay. So as you'd note in the current market, where interest rates are very high, and we get investments exceeding your 15% and stuff like that, we have seen the need to then increase our pricing as a bank. And then purpose, basically this simply means, what is it that you need the money for, right? It cannot be for illegal activities. It needs to be for the rightful business purpose. And then the amount that is being sought, there is also a need that you also show us some level of commitment by giving skin in the game, meaning contribution. So if you are going to be doing something or financing you, you also have to come in with a little bit to ensure that at the end of the day, we don't own that project as the bank, and therefore the little bit of risk that you put in there as a contribution will actually make sure that you basically fulfill what you want to be doing as a business to grow it, right? And then we also look at the repayment ability. Can the business pay back the loan? Because at the end of the day, you need to pay back the loan. If you don't pay back the loan, then basically this can affect the entire country. Why? Because we send reports to Bank of Botswana that tries to show how Botswana are paying back their debt. And those statistics are then used by international investors to basically rate the country to say, is this a country worth investing into? So even when the president goes out there and says, we're looking for money from investors, these particular statistics of our local debt, they go in there to say, Botswana actually pay back properly, and therefore this is worth, it's a country worth investing into, right? And then lastly, it's insurance. Insurance, not necessarily the life policies and the covers, study, motor, comprehensive covers and stuff like that, but rather also means the collateral security that you bring to say, at the end of the day, should I not be able to repay you, please feel free to probably liquidate this particular asset. This is also skin in the game in some type of way.
Okay. Thank you for that, Shangano. It's quite a mouthful. It's actually quite informative. I think it then speaks to what Mpaphi is saying. I think that's what in your area as a director of policy advocacy are identifying as you continue to research, so that they ensure that we support SMEs in Botswana. I think then it's quite evident that it's important that we foster collaborations between ourselves and the bank and the likes of Business Botswana to ensure that we carry SMEs forward.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. To you, Mpaphi, let's speak to policy and advocacy. What's Business Botswana's current policy and advocacy focus for 2026, particularly regarding SME growth and competitiveness in the market?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Like I indicated, there is a number of pressures that the SMEs are facing, of which we have put at the forefront. And it's interesting that I'm sitting next to an SME bank colleague here. Yeah. And one of the main issues that we have put in the forefront relates to financing of SMEs, yes, especially risk-based capital. Yes. I want to believe that you, as much as you are an SME bank, I hope Shangano will correct me here. You probably are looking to increase your appetite towards risk, because the space in which you are operating in, the SMEs, is quite risky, because majority of them are getting into spaces that are not as well understood, yes, as you would want, such that you've got a reduced risk. So it's one of those things that we have put at the forefront as Business Botswana to ensure that we advocate, and it's good that Bobo, you're talking about Business Botswana collaborating with Bank Gaborone to ensure that we work together to help each other in terms of moving towards helping you increase your risk appetite. But at the end of the day, like Shangano was saying, you are a bank, you're a business, you need to also make money. But how do we then bridge that gap to ensure that we help our businesses? So we do have what we call a private sector development strategy and program that outlines where we want to focus. But I think the issue of financing to us, because I'm sitting and hosted by a financier, so it's an issue of interest. Yes. But obviously also we've been advocating quite strongly for digitization, supporting the SMEs to digitize, because it improves their efficiency, yes, and it also helps them being able to tap into the markets or the areas in which they have not been tapping into quite extensively. So we're also looking at infrastructure improvements. We know that SMEs across different sectors, they need to have those operational spaces
Yes.
that they need to work through. So it's one of those things that we have been putting forth as a matter to advocate for. But lastly, not meaning that is the only one. We are also looking at regulatory constraints that the SMMEs are facing, and I want to believe that as an SMME bank, you are also concerned about the regulatory pressures that this kind of businesses are facing. So we have put that at the forefront, specifically for streamlining and simplifying procedures, because we have realized that the SMEs are brushed within the same brush as the larger the corporates, wherein the requirement is quite stringent, but these are still trying to get their foot into the game. But how do you then get to have them be exposed to such kind of very stringent regulatory requirements? So those are some of the things, and we are also trying to advocate for having them being part of the high value chain, so that they can be able to benefit and integrate themselves into the mainstream economy. And one of our pillars in our strategy is mainstreaming informal sector into the formal sector, because we know in this space there's a bit of informality that we need to be dealing with. So I think as an advocacy person, there's a lot I can talk about, but in the interest of time, I think those are relevant for the conversation we are having now.
Yes. I think I was particularly drawn to when you were talking about SMEs that are in a certain market where financiers would feel that it's quite it's too risky to enter into this market. I think with the conversations that we have seen, people would say, because business so it's quite insightful and to see that as Business Botswana, this is your current focus, to say that, you know what, let's look at the 360 dimension of the business, and to say let's not only consider corporates, but let's also consider SMEs. So I think then it would speak to what Rashangano would typically do in his conversations with your clients or prospective clients. And I think it also speaks to the importance of relationship management. I think, and you know, with banks, you find that obviously we are sales driven, and you find that in most cases, I would have gotten advice from Business Botswana, or Business Botswana would have advocated for a certain industry to be supported, operational efficiency, digitization, so forth and so on. But then is to say, what sort of financing would you advise your clients to get such that they do not strain their businesses to you, Shangano? Because you'd find that, as an example, a client would go to a bank and they say they want working capital, but they're given a different facility that actually strains their businesses. So from your end, as a banker, what do you look at when you speak to or trying to decide what sort of financing you can give to a client?
So just like a doctor with a patient, right? When you visit the hospital, you know you have a headache. But when you get there, the doctor asks you for all the symptoms and characteristics of what you are suffering from. You give them, and from their profession or studies, they'll be able to tell that this is what they would prescribe. So the challenge might be where somebody goes to the bank, comes to us already having prescribed for themselves. So overtla pills, me ga tlhoke pills. I get it. So what really has to happen is that you approach us. When you come to us, lay everything on the table so that we can give you the right type of finance that will be suitable for the purpose that you need it for. As an example, generally people know ke batla loan, right? So ke batla loan, but we tell that loan, the way the funds are going to be coming in, you are probably running your business, but you are receiving late payments. And therefore, as a banking professional, I'll tell you that what you need is an overdraft, right? Because of the nature of your cash flows, right? So what we need to do is lay everything on the table, tell the bank what your problem is, then they'll find the right solution. In that way, they're able to align your cash flows with the solution that they'll give to you. So in some instances, you might find client has not really understood their business. And then they get to the bank, they want a loan, they get the loan, but they're paying on a monthly basis.
Yes.
Whereas their cash flows is coming on a quarterly basis or half yearly or annually, right? So leave everything to us. We will prescribe the right product for you.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for that, Shangano. I think it's quite insightful. Maybe for you
No,
to just chip in,
I would like to challenge Shangano to have the bank at least being on the forefront of leading and a modernization or a completely a shift in the funding structure that is looked at towards SMEs.
Yes.
If you hear in my engagement here, I don't use the word loan because a loan in a business sense is not really. I use capital.
Yes.
Yes. So I think we need to challenge each other to move from our comfort zones to see how do we make sure that we facilitate this huge potential to grow into a potential huge client for my portfolio.
Yes.
I think this is the challenge that Shangano and colleagues at Bank Gaborone, you have taken a very good step of being an SME bank. By saying you're an SME bank is because you understand the complexities and the challenges that this area has. So the other day we had an engagement with the Vice President regarding the budget speech to say he acknowledged, and I think we all need to agree that the current funding system for the SME needs a radical change. And I think this is an opportunity for Bank Gaborone as an SME bank to take the lead in completely overhauling. And we are happy to work with the bank in this case as Business Botswana, because when you look at our membership base, sometimes people think we are a big boys club, but we are not. We are actually a small men's club, because over 70%, 75% of our membership is SMEs. And we are currently housing informal sector because we believe in this. We believe that they hold huge capacity of being the the ones that can jumpstart economic growth and be able to contribute towards growing the pie in this country. So I think I understand Shangano, and apologies, I don't use the word loan when I discuss business, but I think we need to challenge ourselves to be moving into more capital that is suited to this kind of a space that we are in. Because we recognize its special circumstances.
Okay, thanks for that. Shangano, as a connector of positive change, do you take on the challenge?
We are on. So we will engage Mpaphi so that we are able to tailor-make the right products. As you know, in the past, we've had government initiatives where you get support, guarantee, right? But then people then go ahead and misuse the guarantees. Eventually, then as a bank, you no longer want to accept that kind of security because they were misused, right? So we need to basically sit down and also educate our SMEs to say, Ghana, if you're going to be misusing these products, right? At the end of the day, then we make losses, right? And then when we make losses, our investors are then not happy because you can talk from initiatives like your SEEP, Botswana, that we went all out and supported heavily. And when things then go a little bit down, then it's a challenge that we all have to be in it together to find the right solution to come out of it.
Agreed.
Okay, that's great to hear that you're actually solutioning in line with the core focus or the focus Business Botswana in order to support SMEs. So let's talk about this, something that people don't really have a conversation about: compliance. the ease of doing business for in Botswana. To you, Mpaphi, what gaps have you seen in terms of compliance for SMEs, and what do you think SMEs can do to strengthen governance?
Yeah, no, I think, to be honest, it's an area that, and I think, like Shangano was saying, he just gave a typical example of abuse of these things and failure to repay.
Yeah.
So there's a huge basket of gaps within this space, and I like how he landed to say, this is a space in which we need to be educating them more about the importance of this, because they are still operating within an informal. So there's a number of this. There's financial and tax compliance. There's labor. We're still operating on labor standards that are not compliant with the requirements. There is also obviously issues of data protection and all those. And most importantly, obviously, also there is regulatory and industry specific compliance gaps that we see. An obvious one is failure to obtain licenses.
Yes.
And all those. And it's a requirement for one to get facilitation from Bank Gaborone. But how do you get facilitation if you've got a licensing compliance issues? So I think it's a space in which we are working more with SMEs. Like I indicated, we have our private sector development strategy and program, and we have identified these areas as ways in which we need to assist them. So at the core of what we are doing ourselves is really education and awareness, education, and more awareness to try and help them in order to ensure that they are compliant, because there is a lot of areas in which they still lack compliance. But like I said, also, sometimes our partners on the other side also need to incentivize them to be able to comply. So if it's very difficult for them not to be able to pay using your payment platforms, colleagues, so they are not going to comply. Yes. So it's also on the other side that we need to facilitate them by simplifying and streamlining processes such that it becomes easy for them to comply. So it's something that we can succeed in closing that compliance gap by working together.
Yes.
Together as a tripartite, Business Botswana, yourselves as a service provider, as a requirer of or a regulator, and also the SMEs themselves, in order to ensure that we facilitate it. So those are some of the areas in which are a pain that we have identified, and we are trying to work through that by education and awareness, and working with partners to ensure that they also incentivize them to make it easy for them to be able to comply to this. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. I think we can all see that compliance is very imperative, particularly in ways of doing business, that you need to ensure that you are compliant with everything that you do. So let's take it to you, Shangano, compliance. What do you do to support clients in terms of compliance, or maybe what sort of habits have you identified from SMEs, and how do you think SMEs can work on those habits to, let's say, in the next 6 to 12 months, maybe if they want to get any sort of financing?
So the most basic, KYC.
Yes.
Know your customer, right?
Yes.
Submission of the right documents to the bank. In our financing, Bank Gaborone, we basically request that clients provide us with tax certificates, right? They have to be a registered company, Botswana, where we know that they do abide by the laws of Botswana, right? So you'd know that at some point, somewhere around your early 2020s, there was re-registration of companies, and some companies did not register, and you might find they still have exposures in the bank, and therefore, if they're not being recognized as a legal entity, it makes it difficult for us then to follow up the money and for them to actually continue conducting business in Botswana, right? Secondly, know your customer ensures that we also abide by the AML regulations, I get, to avoid being grey listed or blacklisted and things like that with other institutions or bo Europe. We know that sometimes we do get these grey listings because they would have identified there's probably a high level of funding or funds that are circulating the economy that they might not know or be sure right? So these things are very detrimental in ensuring that with compliance, you put at ease investors, then they're able to bring money, right? So one thing is that SMEs need to then do record keeping. I get. So in keeping records, so that at the time when they're now preparing their financials, for example, it's very easy for them because with the bank, we will require that somebody brings financials so that we can try and assess how much they performed in the previous year and then look at the future cash flows to say, now, how do you want us to assist you? So compliance is very key.
Okay. No, that's quite insightful. And I think from my experience as a business banker, some clients would be shocked when you give them a call to ask them about the source of funds. Maybe the client has received 5 million and you call them, no, we just wanted to ask the source of funds. And they ask you questions such as, why are you asking me about where that money is coming from? It then speaks to the compliance that you are actually talking about and how the bank has to be resilient in ensuring that all our clients are compliant. So let's speak to market access and competitiveness. Mpaphi, what would you advise SMEs to do to ensure that they are competitive in the market and they are better positioned to tap into any opportunities that are there in the market?
Yeah, I think we've been indicating this. The most important thing is just for them to transition from being informal to being more structured.
Yes.
Such that they meet the basic minimum requirements of that. So if you are not registered, or if like Shangan was saying, you don't have your KYC in order, how do you then get it's like the basic of what you need to have before we go into having them have compliant business models that can help them. But the other thing is, like I indicated earlier, is leveraging technology so that they are able to be more efficient.
Yes.
Yeah, in order to ensure that they cut the cost requirement. But flip it on the other side, what we are saying also to partners is that you need to also facilitate them by making it easy for them and not increase the cost of them being able to apply. And one of the things that we have been advocating for quite strongly has been digitized tender a document, such that it becomes easy for them to be able to get them without necessarily having to drive and print and type a lot of things. So make it easy for them so that they are able to and also the simplest thing, it might be simple in the sense that I say it's simple, but it's not really simple. But they need to be to get in the certifications that are needed for them to give them a competitive edge when they are applying for this tenders. Because sometimes you need to supply something. If you are into manufacturing, you are producing something. Let's say maybe you are into high value products that we've got uniqueness to, like the basket. So you need to at least have a bare minimum certification for that standard, such that when you supply it, you can vouch for it that it's a good quality product. So those are some of the things that we, as we engage, as we educate, as we partner with partners like yourselves in order to facilitate SMEs to help them have a foot in these opportunities, we educate them about. So I think in a nutshell, those are some of the things that we normally help them. But like also Shangan said, you need to get your basics in finance in order.
Yes.
So you need to understand your financials, at least at the bare minimum.
Yes.
You need to know how much you have been doing, how much you expect to be doing, and how much you think your projections considering what you are doing will give you, so that you can then be able to give confidence to the person that you are tendering to or you are seeking to benefit the opportunity from, so that they can be comforted that, you know what, this business has got a potential.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's quite insightful. I think it speaks to how really as an entrepreneur, you really need to have a full understanding of your business and not just look at ways in which you can bring in revenue or let's say sales, but you need to ensure that other aspects of the business are also looked into.
Yeah. So the unfortunate thing about SMEs and entrepreneurs, somebody invests a lot in their idea and then forget that behind the idea there is also the systems around it that gets it to the tail end. So you need to also get all these things in order: your financials, your certification, understand what is needed, who are your potentials, so that you are on top of your game.
Okay.
So, adding to this issue of investing in the idea,
Yes.
in the initial stages of a business, an SME basically would start moving around, transportation, the finance, all these things. That's actually equity. That's actually money that if you showed it in your financials, in future you could withdraw it, because that's a shareholder's loan. That's your input. One, people will not pay themselves salaries, right? When you don't pay yourself a salary, you need to put it down that this business owes me. So the ease of it is that you could actually pay yourself a salary, put that money back into the business as a shareholder's loan. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that, gentlemen. I think in the interest of time, I'll just give you 30 seconds each. What final advice would you have for an SME? Let me start with you, Changano.
So I'd say to SMEs, they should do their research, right? Get advisable, be advisable. So the importance of doing research, I'll take it in our failing agric model, where we are not able to be sustainable as a country, right? You're going to find that right? But do people do soil tests? Do they do water tests to actually know that a certain pH, 5.5 or whatever? So what we do, we go get has been subsidized by government, and the next thing, we are going to spread it out all over the country in the different soils. And then the soils that are not suitable will not yield the results that we want, right? So at the end of the day, it almost comes out like initiatives are there, but there is no the effect of us now putting education into it to ensure that we actually get the best yield out of it.
Okay. To you, Mpaphi, your last words.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. We, as Business Botswana, we are available to work with them, Bank Gaborone, to support them. And secondly, they need to invest in their idea holistically, because scaling up too fast without investing in foundations is risky for them, because it might lead to a lot of problems, declining product, cash flow crisis, and all that. So we encourage them to invest in the idea holistically, look at the foundations that support the idea, speak to Business Botswana, speak to Bank Gaborone, in order to ensure that you have got a complete idea of what you want to do and you get the support you need.
Motswana wetsuko hai lebai kutlwetse Re Mpaphi from Business Botswana and Re Shangano Tsayang from Bank Gaborone. At Bank Gaborone, we are connectors of positive change, and we find it prudent to have such conversations to see how best we can solution for you as SMEs in Botswana. As you know, we believe SMEs are the backbone of our economy. Please feel free to leave your comments in the comment section, and we'll be sure to reach out to you. From myself, Bobo Samo at Bank Gaborone, we thank you.